10. Here comes Jimmer. Long ball.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. This is episode 67. I'm your host, as always, Tyler King, here to talk all things hoops in the Mountain Time Zone. Then today, we are recording on Thursday, February 12th. We're heading into All-Star Weekend in the NBA, but we're going to be talking college hoops today, as we've got a fun weekend around the time zone, and talk about some teams that maybe we haven't in recent weeks. And in case you missed it earlier this week, I had my good friend Caleb Wilfinger on the show to talk about Arizona and their first loss of the season, which came on Monday at Kansas. We talked a little bit about that, the Darren Peterson situation, hit on some Nuggets and Jazz as well. And hopefully early next week, we'll do a little bit of a check-in on all three of the NBA teams here in the Mountain Time Zone, as the teams will be off until Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's Wednesday or Thursday next week is when teams will get back in action. But we're back talking college hoops today, as promised, ahead of you'll be listening to this on Friday, but ahead of a fun weekend of hoops here. And to help me break it down is my friend Sean Walker from KSL. Sean, how you doing?
All this time here, I forgot to mute myself, but appreciate you having me on, Tyler. Always good to be back, and always good to hang out to talk a little bit of hoop at altitude, if you will.
That's a great little motto for the show that maybe I'll have to adopt that and steal that, but I'll give you credit for it if I do.
All the basketball, less, but significantly less oxygen content.
There we go. And of course, when we have you on, we got to talk BYU. As everybody can tell by the intro video, Cougars finally snapped a 4-game losing streak. They lost 5 of 6, but not really, nothing to be much of ashamed of. I think, 4 of the losses were to get to ranked teams, and the only one that wasn't was on the road against a solid Oklahoma State team, and that was a close game. But they get a road win at Baylor early this week. Rob Wright has a big game against his old team. That was a little bit of a fun subplot. He had 30 points. AJ Dybantsa had 36 points. And this BYU team has quickly become, what does AJ Dybantsa, Rob Wright, and Richie Saunders have on a given night? Because other than that, if those three guys, I guess if 2 of those 3 guys don't have it, it's not going to go well for BYU. But just kind of what has been your impression of this team in this much anticipated BYU season, as we're now into February, and BYU is still in the rankings, still a top 25 KenPom team. I think they still have a top 5 offense. Like, it's still a very fun team to watch, but they're finally getting back to winning ways after a little bit of a slow spot there.
Yeah, top 5 offense, top 5-10 offense, kind of vacillates between 5 and 10 right now. Definitely fun to watch. Definitely a lot of scoring on this team, particularly from the big 3. I noticed you didn't mention top 10 defense. That's, I think, is what has been standing out with this BYU team, as they've now lost. I think it's 4 of the last 6. After their win against Baylor, the defense hasn't been great. I think they're still like top 60 somewhere in there, but
it's in the 50s in KenPom. Yeah, 56 right now. Yeah,
certainly not compared to like a Kelvin Sampson defense at Houston. They are not that, I think, in any means.
Or even Arizona, who's got a top 5 defense right now.
Yeah, BYU is not Arizona. BYU is definitely not Arizona. My favorite stat to bring up, though, right, and I've brought it up actually a couple of times on different radio hits and that kind of thing, is everybody knows about the big 3. AJ Dybantsa, he's been awesome, as I think expected for BYU, averaging 24.5 points per game. Richie Saunders in the senior season, he's been great, better in the second half of games than in the first, which is maybe a little bit something to talk about. And then Rob Wright has been very good more often than not. He was excellent, elite, dare I say, with that 30 burger that he dropped in his old stomping grounds at Baylor. But trivia time. Can I give you a trivia time, Tyler?
Absolutely. I'm always down for some trivia.
Do you know who BYU's 4th leading scorer is right now in terms of points per game?
I think
everybody knows Dybantsa. Everybody knows Saunders. Everybody knows
Kebaketa. I know that.
Rob Wright III.
Is it someone who's hurt?
Huh?
Is it someone who's hurt?
It is somebody who is very hurt.
It's Dawson Baker, right?
Dawson Baker. He got hurt.
I was looking this up the other day, yeah.
Yeah, so Dawson Baker would have been a senior this year, got hurt 6 games into the season, unfortunately. Not his first bout with injuries. It's like his I think it was his third season-ending injury. At least second at BYU. I think he had one during his previous stint at UC Irvine as well. But Dawson Baker averaging, let me not give you fake news, 7.5 points per game through 6 games of the season. That is BYU's current number 4 scorer on this BYU basketball team. Kennard Davis Jr., one of the other starters that you didn't mention, he's averaging 7.1 through 21 games. So he's probably actually the guy right there. But just statistically, numerically, we go off of points per game. That is Dawson Baker still to this point, even though the fact that he hasn't played now in about
since November. Yeah.
Keba Keita also up there, but he's more of a rebounder, averaging only 6.5 points per game for BYU as well. So I think that kind of tells you most of what you need to know about this BYU team. It's a lot of offense, but it's been a lot of big three or bust. If at least 2 of the 3 are hitting, then this team is pretty good. If somebody has an off night, as has happened against, granted, again, some very good competition, it's been a bit more of a struggle. And then the defense, I think the defense is what's really keeping this team back from being from going from good or very good to being a great or even elite team, is having that type of defensive mentality. That just hasn't been there the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting 60 points from your top 3 guys, like, you don't really need a whole lot of scoring from anybody else. Like, that's probably I've been talking about trios a lot in college basketball this season. I've always kind of felt like Iowa State's got one of the better trios in the country with Jefferson, Momcilovic, and Lipsy. But BYU's is certainly right up there at this point of the season with kind of how much production they're getting from those guys and how important they are. But it's just kind of, you're trying to figure out who you can get. Like you said, Mu Davis has played a lot this season and is kind of fitting in where he needs to. You're getting some Mihailo Boskovic off the bench. Like, you're trying to get what you can from Kadim Mboop. Like, you're trying to figure out just what you can get from the guys. Like, what have you seen from Kevin Young as he's tried to adjust here in year 2, as he's trying to orient this team around the 3 stars while also trying to keep everybody else involved?
Yeah, it's definitely been an adjustment. And I mean, the last couple of times we've talked to Kevin Young, to his credit, he's been very upfront that he has wanted more and he needs more from his bench. He brought in a bunch of guys. You mentioned Mihailo Boskovic, who's a senior now. You mentioned Kadim Mboop, who's kind of like a flex wing, semi-big, that can also shoot the ball. He brought in Alexei Kostic from overseas, true freshman from Austria. Tyler Moroz, the leading scorer at Idaho last year. He brought in all of these guys to try to be shooters, and none of them have really shot the ball particularly well. You've got Tyler Moroz, who's shooting just 30% from the field. Alexei Kostic is shooting about 36%, but less 30% from 3-point range, and that's supposed to be his specialty. Kadim Mboop he's been pretty nice in spurts. I think but he hasn't been very consistent. I'd say the same thing about Mihailo Boskovic as well. 46% shooter, but just 30% from 3-point range. You want him as kind of that stretch wing, stretch big, if you will. And these guys just aren't really able to come off of the bench and stretch the floor, I think, in the way that Kevin Young and his staff expected when they brought them in to try to surround this big 3 nucleus with what they need to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Now, all of that being said, we're still a long way from March. I know it's February 12th as we record this, but I think we are still a long way from March. Things can't change. Things can't get better. I think there is talent there, but they've got to figure out a way to put this all together, or they may be coming up on an early tournament exit come the second, third weekend of the month. Of March, I should say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what their seeding is. Obviously, they've got a chance over the next 7 games to improve things. Obviously, they've got, I think, a couple ranked games left. 2 of them are at home. Obviously, they go at Arizona next week. They play Colorado tomorrow on Saturday, when most of you are listening to this, which should be a win. And there's other winnable games against UCF. They've got the East Coast-ish trip to West Virginia and Cincinnati, and then they wrap up with Texas Tech at home in early March. So, we'll see what the seeding is like for the Big 12 tournament as well, because that is going to be extremely, extremely exciting. That's going to be like can't miss television every day of the week in Kansas City on what is going to be some sort of what is it? LED court.
The can't miss television you're referring is the floor that they're playing on, right? They're playing on the television.
Yeah, the glass, yeah, the glass LED floor that Big 12 always trying to innovate in interesting ways. Some that I don't think are worth it, but this will be an interesting thing when they're playing on glass. But we'll see how that goes. But regardless, BYU's got a chance to really improve here. Like, what do you want to see other than just getting maybe 2 or 3 guys that are not outside of the big 3? I think Kibakeda is pretty reliable when he's not getting in foul trouble. Like, he's a pretty reliable 4th starter. Moo Davis has been pretty reliable too. But is it just kind of making sure that you have 7 guys kind of going into the Big 12 tournament that Kevin Young is capable of or trust outside of the 4 basically outside of the big 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just consistency. It's some sort of consistency for guys doing something. Keba Keda, I don't put Keba in sort of this qualifier because he's been consistently BYU's best rebounder. I think that is a skill. He's their best rim protector right now. When he's on the floor, he's been very consistent at what he does. He doesn't bring a ton offensively, but he can give you a couple points here and there and give you
He's
enough
a lob
everywhere
threat.
else.
Yeah, he's a rim runner. Yeah.
Yeah, and he'll give you enough everywhere else that I think you keep him. And that's what I think BYU kind of needs from some of those other guys on the bench. You know, you don't need Alexi Kosic to come in and be a lockdown defender necessarily. If he can come and hit a couple of threes and space the floor and maybe give a little bit of time off to like Rob Wright, or even if AJ
Yeah, he did that in the Arizona
take
game during that kind of the comeback, the very late comeback. He played a big role in that.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I think that's a great point. Tyler Moras, I would say the same thing, kind of that sort of group. I think Bidu Ahmed, the former G League player who's now kind of found a little bit of a role behind Keba Keda, I think he's done a little bit of that. He hasn't been great offensively, doesn't bring a ton to the offensive game, but he's a shot blocker, he's a rim protector. He's able to come off the bench and get a couple of boards. He does what needs to be done. More often than not, again, when you can stay on the floor, he also has a little bit of an issue with foul trouble as well. I don't think you're looking for complete packages behind that big 3. And I think that's totally fine. You just need somebody to come in and play their role and do their job consistently so that the big 3 don't have to necessarily shoulder all of the weight by themselves.
I want to get your take on AJ and just kind of what you've seen from him, because we talked before the season about how, he's got a chance to be he's at least the most exciting player BYU has ever acquired. He's the number 1 recruit in the country. He's likely going to be a top 30 pick in the draft. He's kind of lived up to the hype so far, leading the country in scoring at 24.5 points per game. He had another 30-point game, a really efficient one, maybe his best game of the season at Baylor the other day, just in terms of how efficiently he was scoring the basketball. And he didn't get to the free throw line double-digit times like we've seen him do a lot this season. And we have seen him struggle against some of the better teams in the country. I mean, he played really well against Houston. Like, I think that was a great game by him. He had 28 points and it was really efficient, but there were some inefficient 20-point games like against Arizona. He struggled obviously in the first half against Kansas, just to kind of find his spots and get shots up in that Darren Peterson battle between those 2 guys in the first half. Just kind of what have you made of AJ as he's adjusted to the college game and playing in the Big 12, where it's a very physical game, but he's a huge player and he's got a huge wingspan, so he's still able to get to his spots and get shots up, as the season has gone on. Just kind of what have you made of his progress throughout these last couple months?
Yeah, and Kevin Young mentioned this to us a little bit before the season, and I think we kind of took it like maybe a little bit skeptical, because you see a guy like AJ Dybantsa, he's this 5-star recruit, a projected lottery pick, possibly number 1 or number 2 draft pick next June. And you think he's a superstar. He's been the scoring sensation. I don't think that surprised anybody. But he did mention early on that one of the things that he liked the most about AJ was his passing ability, the way he can get his teammates involved. And that, I think, has very much lived up to the hype, in addition to being this high-flying dunker, a very good three-point shooter as well. He's
mid-range specialist.
I think 38% from 3. He gets to the free throw line really well. So offensively, he's got all those tools. He rebounds well enough for his size. But he's also averaging almost 4 assists per game, 3.7 as we speak right now. And he does a really good job of getting teams, when teams are collapsing on him or they bring the double team, he can find an outlet pass to kick out to, say, Rob Wright for 3, or maybe get it to Richie Saunders to get downhill and drive inside. Like, he's very good at getting his teammates involved and not just shouldering the entire load himself. Now, I say that with a guy who also dropped 40 points a couple weeks ago at Utah. Like, he can attack the basket. He can put up buckets in bunches.
Yeah, I mean, he's got over a dozen games this year where he's taken, or close to a dozen games this year where he's taken 20+ shots. Like, he does get his shots up, but I think you're right. He's done a great job of. I mean, he had 7 assists the other day at Baylor. Like, he's done a good job of kind of adjusting to what defenses give him.
Yeah, he's the number 2 assist man on this team, behind only Rob Wright. And I think Rob actually plays better when he has somebody like AJ who can move the ball around with him. He's not just a straight up point guard. He's got a little bit of combo in him where he likes to shoot as well. And so you need somebody to kind of find him for some of those catch and shoot threes like he was getting at Baylor as well. And so that I think has been maybe the most impressive thing to me about AJ Dybantsa. And I think that's something that NBA teams are going to look really hard at. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later as we get further into the pre-draft process, as far as what they see out of him in terms of his professional career.
Yeah, we're going to talk a ton about AJ as the months go on here, especially with the Jazz doing everything in their power to keep that top 8 protected pick and ideally jump into the top 4 this year to try to grab, one last really big piece to add to their core that has now grown in recent weeks with Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think AJ would be a really valuable guy that if they somehow jump into the top 4 and are in a position to draft him. So we'll talk about him a lot. Just one last thing on him, like in terms of the BYU context and the and what's coming up for this team. Like, is he a guy, you mentioned like BYU, and I think if they lose early in the NCAA tournament, or if they are bounced early even in the Big 12 tournament, it'll be because of the lack of depth and the lack of confidence in guys coming off the bench that are supplementing this big 3. But part of what can get you deep into not just conference tournaments, but get you to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament and even beyond, even in the Final Four, which I think this team has that kind of ceiling, is superstar talent and individuals just kind of taking over for a couple of weeks. Do you think AJ Dybantsa is the kind of guy that can do that for a couple of weeks in a row once we get to March here and carry this BYU team deep into the month?
I do, absolutely. I mean, in terms of just superstars in the sport, I think you'd be hard pressed to find more than 3 or 4 that are greater or that are at a higher level of star power than AJ Dybantsa. I'm not saying he's necessarily the best player in the country, but I think he's on the short list of it. If he falls out of the top 5 in the NBA draft, I'll be absolutely shocked.
He's not going to fall out of the top 4 at bare minimum.
I mean, I don't think he falls out of the top 2, if I'm being totally real.
I think anywhere from two to 4 is realistic for him at this point, but it's going to depend on like what teams want, all that kind of stuff. The top 3, he could easily go anywhere in that top 4.
Yeah, and guys like that, to your point, like you mentioned, I think guys like that, whether it's AJ Dybantsa or Darren Peterson when he's fully healthy, I think Cam Boozer has shown this a little bit. I think Texas Tech has like 3 guys like this, quite frankly.
Speaking of trios, Texas Tech has a great trio.
Yeah, exactly. I think there are plenty of teams that have players like this, but AJ Dybantsa is definitely that type of player that can take over a game in so many different ways, whether it's, whether it's that mid-range game, like you mentioned, whether it's the 3 ball, whether it's finding as a teammates, 7 assists per game, that kind of thing. He can take over the game in so many different ways that, I agree. I mean, this is the type of player that you really need to make a truly special, a truly deep run in the NCAA tournament. If everything else lines up, I think they have that guy to take BYU basketball to, quite frankly, a place they've literally never been before. Or even their first Elite Eight appearance since Danny Ainge was playing hoop back roughly, I think, in the Cretaceous period, I think is when that was. I'm showing my age a little bit because
Danny still shows up to the games. He's doing his part as an alum. He's doing his job. Yeah.
Some would say he's doing as much with a BYU transaction as Utah Jazz transactions, but that's maybe another topic for another day.
Well, part of the other reason I wanted to have you on today is because we've got a very interesting situation that I know you have been covering very closely in the WAC with Utah Valley, another program that you're very familiar with Utah Valley and the kind of the messy breakup with the WAC, which is becoming not the WAC anymore. It's becoming the United Athletic Conference at this summer. Just kind of a very weird situation going on where Utah Valley is or the WAC is claiming that the Utah Valley owes $1 million in exit fees and is now not broadcasting the games, the home games for Utah Valley, and they are not eligible to compete in the conference tournament, thus not eligible to make the NCAA tournament because they're not going to get in as an at-large. So just kind of take us through this whole situation and kind of why it has unfolded this way when Utah Valley is not the only program leaving the WAC this summer. Like like I said, the WAC is kind of breaking up, and there's only 3 schools that are staying in. They're merging with the football playing schools from the ASUN, and I think Arkansas Little Rock is also coming in. Like it's going to be a very, very different league from what we've seen for the last 60 years since the WAC began in the early 60s. Let's just take us through to kind of this whole very weird situation going on with UVU and the WAC.
Yeah, it is really weird because the first response, I think, when this news first came out that the WAC was suing Utah Valley for unpaid exit fees was, well, what kind of unpaid exit fees can a conference that will no longer exist after July 1st of this year collect on? And I think that was really important about the WAC's announcement is that they aren't formally dissolving. They pitched this move, kind of, I guess, conference-wide move, if you will, to the UAC, to the United Athletic Conference as a rebranding, a readjustment, a reshifting. They're going to be merging some operations with the ASUN. And I think that was very particular language that they use because now as a legal entity, the Western Athletic Conference will still exist just under a new name with a new logo and even a new conference headquarters and all of that stuff. And so because of that, there will still be this entity that is collecting exit fees. And to their credit, they have collected most exit fees from departing members of the conference right up until even California Baptist a couple weeks before Utah Valley announced their move to the Big West. I've heard they even paid their $1 million to the WAC to kind of get out and to leave to head over to the Big West. Utah Valley is a little bit different. They haven't paid for a variety of reasons, and the university hasn't really talked about the situation. So I don't really know too much of what's rumor, what's conjecture, and what is fact. But what we do know is they haven't paid that exit fee. And so as of right now, the number 1 team in the WAC with an 8-3 conference record, 18-6 overall, a top 100 team in the net, top 80 team in the net, that probably will be, should be, could be at the very least favored to win the entire conference tournament in Las Vegas and make their first ever NCAA tournament appearance, is not eligible for the postseason because of this snafu. I'm sure there will be plenty of fights between now and February over this money, but it all comes down to just that, over whether the WAC is truly owed this $1 million exit fee or whether UVU has a point in that they shouldn't have to pay this fee because other schools haven't been required to. I think it was, I want to give credit. I'm trying to look this up right now a little bit on the fly. I want to give credit where credit is due. I think it was Casey Smurthwaite over at Hero Sports first reported that Utah Tech and Southern Utah weren't required to pay an exit fee for their move to the Big Sky away from the WAC. And there's a whole, I mean, Casey's got a great story in there. You should go check him out at Hero Sports if you can on that move. They're not claiming any media rights money from the Big Sky for the next, I think it's 6 years until the end of their current contract, similar to what SMU did with the ACC, I guess, just in a significantly smaller scale on a much smaller budget. And so because of that, like the WAC essentially let them out of their $1 million exit penalty in order to clear their book so that they can make a move over to the UAC. Now, if you're Utah Valley, you look at that, these 2 moves were announced about 3.5 weeks between each other. And you're going, well, hold on. How come they don't have to pay this fee, but we do? And I think that's where, again, they haven't commented on the situation, but you can see where that you might feel some type of way a little bit about that. Why does a conference bylaw apply to one school but not another? And I think that's probably going to be the process of this overall legal entanglement of trying to figure all of that out. The biggest winner, what I can say, like, I'm not a lawyer, but I've spoken to a lot of one, and the biggest winner I think in this whole situation is going to wind up being billable hours, which will remain undefeated.
I was going to say,
because the lawyers are going to get involved, and there will probably be some sort of this. I would expect there to be some sort of a settlement of some kind of this dispute, whether it's UVU paying the entire $1 million or some lesser sum just to get it off the books, so that the Wolverines can have a chance at their first ever NCAA tournament appearance before the WAC rides off into the sunset. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's unique. It's weird. Again, like you mentioned, you can't watch Utah Valley games anymore, home games.
You can watch the road
ESPN
games. Yeah.
But it's just, Yeah, I mean it's weird. I think that's the only way to really characterize this. It's something the likes of which we haven't really seen before. A conference suing a departing member for this particular reason, and especially one that won't officially kind of sort of exist in a
Yeah.
couple of months.
Yeah, and it really kind of only hurts the student athletes. Like you said, this Utah Valley team, this program has never made the NCAA tournament. Now, granted, they've only been a Division One program for the last 20 years or so,
Yeah.
since the early part of this century. But this was supposed to be kind of a breakthrough season for this program. I remember having Coach Todd Phillips on our show before the season, kind of talking about how the expectations were to win the WAC this year. Like, they had gotten so close the last couple of years, whether it was under Mark Madsen when they won the WAC regular season championship that year. They also won it last year. Like, they've been to the NIT semifinals. They've been knocking on the door of becoming a really fun mid-major that can crack the NCAA tournament. And this, I felt like, was going to be the year. And like you said, they're tied with Cal Baptist at the top of the standings at 8-3. They're 18-6 overall. They have the best resume in terms of the analytics and stuff like that of any team in the conference. Like, they would likely be the favorite going into the WAC tournament. Granted, it's only 7 teams, but if Utah Valley is allowed to play, but still, like, this is the best chance. And if they're not allowed to, I think it would just be a shame for the WAC and for Utah Valley and just for everyone involved to this point, because like you said, the WAC, like I said before, like, the WAC is a very historic conference. Like, you look at the teams that were in the WAC at some point. Like, it was BYU, it was Utah, it was the Arizona schools, it was Colorado State. I mean, you look at all these programs, Utah State, all these programs that had been in the WAC at some point, and it just kind of, in the last couple of years, it was really fun with Grand Canyon being in the league. Now they're in the Mountain West. Like, it's just kind of gotten to this point where the WAC is not going to exist in the way that it did anymore with the rebranding, and Utah Valley is trying to move on. It just feels like this is all really unnecessary, and like I said, it really only hurts the student athletes more than about anybody else.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about this move is also timing. It just so happens that this move was leaked to ESPN, and one side of this argument, by the way, has publicly commented on the lawsuit. The other side has not. So I don't want to say anything about Pete Thamel and his sources, ESPN and their sources, but I will leave it at that to let you decide how this may have gotten leaked to ESPN. And it happened on February 5th, which was or it happened February 4th, excuse me, the day before February 5th, when Utah Valley hosted Abilene Christian for the beginning of I think it's 6 straight games against top half teams in the WAC, half of them at home. So they're at home. They just barely come off of a big win at Tarleton State. And then they were home to Abilene Christian, which they won. They hosted UT Arlington, which they won again. And now they've got games at Utah Tech, which is currently 3rd place in the WAC. They're home to California Baptist, and then they're at that same Utah Arlington team, which is also a top 4 team in the WAC at the moment as well. So there's just some very unique, interesting circumstances about the timing of this lawsuit when it was filed in a district court in Tarrant County, Texas, which encompasses Arlington, where the WAC HQ is. Because, by the way, I'm a little bit of a public records request nerd. Because it was filed in that district court in Texas, it's also inaccessible to any of us on the side of the Rocky Mountains. Texas does have those kinds of public record laws where they're only openable. Most of them are only openable by in-state residents. So I haven't
Convenient.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I haven't actually received a full copy of this lawsuit.
Yeah.
Because again, it's closed to anybody in the state of Utah. So we're going off of what the WAC says, what Utah Valley does or doesn't say at this moment. Oh, and by the way, Todd Phillips and that team that can potentially has a great shot, I think, at making history in their final year in the WAC, is going through what arguably may be the most important stretch of the season at Utah Valley. So we actually asked Todd about that after his most recent home game, if he kind of addressed it with the team. He said, yeah, you have to. They're going to see this on social media anyway, so there's no point in hiding it. But then he was very upfront and honest, and he said, we thought about it for about 10 minutes because there are so many other things that this team needs to focus on, needs to worry about. They're taking care of business so far. They're on a 3-game winning streak as they head to, I think they're at Utah Tech this weekend. And they really need to take care of those.
Yeah,
that
they play
business.
they play Utah Tech tonight actually when we're recording this. So it's a Thursday night game. So
Yeah,
and
so
then
we're
they
recording this one before
yeah.
that Utah Tech game. So full disclosure, full transparency. We don't talk about Utah Tech's thrilling upset. Maybe we should record two. Oh boy, what an upset by Utah Tech! No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so they're on a 3-game winning streak heading into that Utah Tech game. Again, another critical game, I think, in the WAC standings. And that's what the team itself, Todd Phillips and his group, needs to focus on. All the while, this kind of swirling cloud of administration is hanging over their heads.
Before I get you out of here, Sean, just kind of last thing, like what do you think? What do you think about the future of UVU basketball? Just kind of making this move to the Big West next year, kind of looking forward, where you're playing just basically every public school in the state of California. That is not the big ones, but obviously you're playing the likes of Cal Poly, UC Santa Barbara, Long Beach State, like CSUN, like you kind of Bakersfield, all these programs that you're going to be playing in this new look conference that is losing some programs, but it's maintaining a pretty large presence in California, and now obviously adding Utah Valley. What do you make of this move? Like, was there ever a chance they got into the WCC at all, like, or sniffed around that? Because obviously that's something I've covered here on this show, and with my day job with University of Denver joining the WCC, kind of making that move. It felt like that's more of a private institution kind of conference, although they are adding UC San Diego in the couple of years as their first, which is going to be the only public institution in the new look version of that conference when they lose Gonzaga to the Pac-12. But just kind of what do you make of where this Utah Valley program is going to go in the Big West, and kind of what the future holds for this program?
Yeah, and I think for a lot of reasons, the Big West does actually suit Utah Valley really well. It's not going to be the WAC. It's very much not like the WAC. I think they're taking a significant step up in terms of competition, in terms of vying for a one-bid leagues NCAA tournament bid in most sports. But I do think it's a good move for Utah Valley, not just in men's and women's basketball, but in all sports. I think it's a great move for their soccer programs, quite honestly. And UVU has grown to be a very good soccer school. I know that doesn't bring in the big bucks, and that's not necessarily sexy for like a show like this. So we won't get too much into that. But I think in terms of all sports, this is a good move. This should be a good move for UVU to kind of promote and elevate itself and its brand to different markets, but also close markets. It won't kill their travel budgets, having to go to the far side of Texas every other weekend. I know that's been talked about a lot in Orem. But I do think this is a good move from a lot of potential moves that this UVU program, this university, this administration had. There were multiple conferences that they were talking to before they ultimately decided to accept that Big West invite. Some of them have been reported, some of them not. So I don't know if I'm saying too much or something that isn't out there, but like there were talks with the Mountain West Conference about Utah Valley. I think it was pretty open that there were overtures from the Summit League about potential expansion. They've been in the state of Utah before, way back when Southern Utah was in, it was called the Mid-Continental Conference back then, now the Summit League. There were talks with the WCC, with the West Coast Conference. Ultimately, UVU felt like their best institutional fit in terms of the university, the size of the athletic department, the sports that they offer, and also the budget size of that athletic department was in the Big West. And I think that's probably the right move when you look at the types of teams that are in these other leagues that they could have had more or less interest in, or that could have had more or less interest in them. I think they probably fit in the best with these UC and CSU schools in Southern California than a lot of those other programs.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's going to be an interesting move for them on the basketball side. Obviously, like I think Todd Phillips has done a great job continuing what Mark Madsen and what Mark Pope have done. Obviously, those guys have gone on to get big jobs, and I think Todd Phillips, if he continues that in the Big West or over the next couple of years, could be in line for a step up at some point in the next couple of years as well. So it's all super fascinating. And Sean, I appreciate you hopping on today to talk all things BYU. And this, like I said, weird is the only way to really describe this UVU WAC situation. So appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, nope, anytime. Always down to talk some WAC hoops. It's a little bit of my love, my secret obsession, if you will. So I'm going to be really sad after July 1st when WAC hoops goes the way of Big East football, I guess. And maybe we'll have to have a nice little vigil for it on this podcast then.
Yeah, we'll definitely plan on doing that at some point during the summer. We can go through all of the best WAC memories from 1962 until now. That'll be a fun time.
Denver University from your side of the Rockies probably
Absolutely,
have
yeah,
a couple of those. Yeah, from
definitely.
their very short stint in the WAC.
Yeah, very, very short. All right, my friend, have a good one.
Always appreciate it.
All right, that'll do it for today's episode of Basketball in the Mountains. Thanks again, my friend Sean Walker from KSL, for hopping on the show today. And thanks to all of you for listening. Make sure to subscribe wherever you are doing so, whether that is on Apple or Spotify. Make sure to leave those 5-star reviews over there. Or if you're listening/watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to my channel, leave a like on the video, leave a comment. All that kind of stuff helps me grow the show and is really appreciated by me. So without further ado, thanks again to Sean Walker for joining us. Thanks all of you for listening, and enjoy the weekend of basketball.